If you're a podcaster, I want to share with you effective marketing hacks to actually make potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue or even millions of dollars in revenue this year, okay? You first want to think about written content. So a lot of times when you think about the podcasting, you're thinking about your voice, right? Your voice is actually the cornerstone of your podcasting machine. But you also got to think about written content in the sense that basically you are able to derive extra revenue from your podcast. The thing is that written content happens through transcription. So what happened? You want to transcribe your podcast into. You want to transcribe them. So when you transcribe your episode, you're having a great podcast marketing strategy. And the cool thing is that this marketing strategy is very scalable. Whether you are speaking to 100 listeners or 100,000 listeners or even to 1 million listeners, okay? So written content should be your very first effective marketing hack if you want to really scale your podcast machine this year. I mean, one thing I want to say here is that when it comes to transcription, you have to understand that you got to really pay attention to SEO, search engine optimization. This is going to help you big time in terms of establishing that relationship with your audience through written content. And the cool thing is that you are also able to make the podcast content more accessible to more people. For example, listening to a podcast when you're hard of hearing is not an easy thing to do, right? So making your show available in other forms is actually a nice way of making your audience feel seen, considered, and included. So and that's really big because you are adding real value to your audience. Another way to actually market your podcast is to convert your transcripts into blogs. So your transcripts are there, but you can have well-written blog articles. Sometimes maybe having a little bit of editing or a little bit of storytelling infused into your transcriptions, into your into your transcriptions. Okay, so again, I'm not just talking about regular blog articles. You want to think about well-structured, polished blog articles that you can pitch to high traffic publications in your niche. Another effective marketing hack for you as a podcaster is to think about cross promotion. You want to really cross promote your show on other podcasts in your niche. If you're trying to really expand your listenership to other industries, to other geographies, this cross promotion can be very powerful. And again, when I'm thinking about cross promotion, I'm talking about ad swaps, for instance. I'm talking about content collaboration. But before you actually do some cross promotion, make sure that the podcast with which you want to share content, their audience is a good fit. Okay, their audience is a good fit for your content, and their content is a good fit for your audience. Does it make sense for this podcaster to be on your show? Does it make sense for you to be on their show? It always has to be a two-way street, if you will. Okay. Will your listeners actually genuinely be interested in what this person has to say? Always have to think about that. And do your audiences have things in common? In other words, is there any common denominator that you can really look into to make sure that you are adding value? It's all about adding value to your audience. You want to add value to your audience. You want to make sure you understand what they're looking for. And you want to also understand that they are really getting value from this collaboration. That's really important for let's say for the long run, okay? Also, you want to create QR codes for people to scan. This is another effective marketing hack for podcasters. I mean, these days, scanning a QR code is actually something common if you want to, let's say, order a drink or do something else, okay? In fact, these little barcodes seem to be everywhere at the moment. Bus tickets, menus, info points at museums, you name it, okay? So it's no different for podcasts. The main advantage of QR codes is that they are super flexible. They can be downloaded and scanned from any smartphone or device with a camera, as long as the barcode is in good condition. So you want the barcode to be in good condition. You don't even have to have any special equipment to set one up. All you need is to generate it, print it, and distribute it. Okay, so and the cool thing is that QR codes are also cheap. Even if you don't have heaps of money to blow on a big billboard or let's say an advertising campaign, this can be an effective podcast marketing strategy. Traditional flyers can be effective, but you can't get creative here, right? Something to really think about. You also want to optimize your website. So if you think about a very top effective marketing hack for podcasters, your website optimization is going to be key. And when I speak about optimizing your website, I'm speaking about indirectly or directly about SEO. You want to level up. You want to level up your your search engine optimization. Okay, so that's kind of cool. And this is one of those things where you are able to draw traffic organically. Let me give you an example. You can see on the screen here the Haberman Lab. So the Haberman Lab, hosted by Dr. Andrew Haberman, a leading ophthalmologist and science communicator from Stanford University. This podcast is very powerful because it focuses on neuroscience, human behavior, and the central nervous system. And Haberman's website is for his podcast is a good example of how easy it needs to be. It's very simple to use, has everything you need, and is well signposted. That's all. Nothing really complicated here. And the thumbnails are fantastic too. They're very clear. They're very sharp. They're very straightforward. Okay. And you also want to start a mailing list this year. If you're trying to really effectively market your podcast, think about starting a mailing list. So if you can create a mail list, that's fine. This way, you can send your audience, let's say, an email on a regular basis and tell them when a new episode has just been released. Newsletters, from my experience, are a fantastic way of keeping listeners engaged and interested in your show, as well as letting them know what's coming up. You also want to take your podcast on live tours. That's kind of cool because you're getting close to the audience. You're sharing with fans too. Okay, if you already have a dedicated fan base for your podcast, big or small, it might actually be great to take the podcast on the road. Okay, that's important, and it's especially if you are trying to really get closer to your audience. One very good podcast that does that is Crime Junkie. Crime Junkie, they're very good at that. If you want to really effectively market your hack this year, market your hack, market your podcast this year, I want you to think about social media also. Utilize social media as much as possible. And when it comes to utilizing social media, just make sure the social media platform where you want to really appear, the one that you have actually is great for your audience, resonates with your podcast content too. Okay, so make sure that you have, like, for instance, if you want to focus on a professional audience, think about LinkedIn. If you want to think about a younger demographic, think about TikTok. If you want to think about a general demographic, think about Facebook, right? So your audience has to how do I say it? Has to find themselves through your social media presence. Also, you want to make merch for your listeners. If you want to really derive some stable revenue for your podcast this year, think about how to really make merch for your listeners. You just have to make sure that you have a good relationship with your audience. So when you create merch in that context, this can be a good marketing, let's say a good podcast marketing hack. Okay, this won't be right for everyone though. It takes a lot of work to build a strong connection with listeners. So don't be dispirited if you're not quite there yet. It takes time. And getting audiences to support your commodities around town is basically free promo for your show. So whether they have walked into a coffee shop with a sticker on their laptop or worn your shirt to the supermarket, It's a brilliant strategy for spreading the word. And if someone then looks you up off the back of it, it's a winner. So that's kind of important. You can see on the screen here an example of the Mimosa Sisterhood. Fantastic strategy. Fantastic strategy. And so, with everything from stickers to hats to mugs to pillows, there's a wide variety of products to choose from. Okay, that's really fantastic. You also want to run social media giveaways. If you are trying to really market your podcast effectively, think about running social media giveaways. Social media giveaways can be a powerful way of connecting with your audience and increasing your reach, as a matter of fact. So, by offering listeners a chance to win a prize, such as a free subscription, merchandise, or exclusive content, podcasts can incentivize engagement and also generate buzz around your brand. Okay. So, the method that you actually use for this is up to you. You might decide to create a Facebook post or an Instagram reel, for example. Either way, remember to ask your audience to share it with their friends and family in their own feeds and tag their friends too. This will help spread the word about your podcast to new potential listeners. So that's kind of important. You also want to ask listeners to recommend your podcast to their friends. So if you are trying to really market your podcast effectively this year, that's really cool. I mean, as a podcast host, you should never underestimate the power of word of mouth recommendations. What I mean by that is that you want to simply ask your audience to tell a friend, a colleague, or a family member about your show. Don't really pressure your listeners though, okay? If you overdo it with multiple pleas per episode, you will just annoy them. Instead, a quick nudge at the end of each episode will actually suffice, okay? You also want to encourage ratings and reviews. So this work doesn't stop once you have released your podcast into the world, right? Remember that podcasting is a very competitive field, so you want to make sure that you are reaching to the right audience at the right time. So you want to keep momentum going in the first few weeks. So ratings and reviews no longer help with Apple's chart rankings anymore, but they are nice things to encourage at this point because they will help entice new listeners to give your podcast a go. So the best place to ask your listeners to do this is in your intros, but also outros. So getting those crucial early reviews in quickly will help you actually set up the whole machine for success. Okay, so that's kind of cool. And one thing I want to say here is that it's a long term game, but it's a good one to actually to lock it in the very first few weeks or months. So the best place, one thing I want to say is that most podcasts out there don't actually have any reviews at all. So even if you only get a few, you already ahead of the crowd. Especially if you do it in a very consistent manner, right? It has to be consistent. It has to be regular, and it has to be let's say straightforward. One thing I want to say here also is that it depends on how you do it and how quickly you want to really lock in those reviews. So, but the more you do it, the more consistent you are, the better you're going to be at it. Okay, that's fantastic. So another way to actually effectively market your podcast this year is to attend relevant meetups and events. This podcasting thing cannot be just done in isolation. You want to really mingle. You want to rub elbows with those peers, okay? Because maybe you share the same audience, or you want to learn from them. You want to learn from mentors. You want to learn from coaches, all that kind of stuff. So going to conferences, meetups, and local events related to your podcast topic gives you a lot of good things. First of all, you have an opportunity to raise your profile. Second, you want to chat. You have an opportunity to chat with people about your show. Number three, you can ask other attendees for some feedback or episode ideas. Okay, it's one of those things where you have a lot to get. But please, this is a give and take. This is a mutually beneficial relationship. Be prepared too. It's a good idea to take business cards or beer coasters to any in-person events. You can hand this out to individuals you speak to and leave a few dotted across the venue for others to pick up, right? So it's one of those things where you got to be prepared, but also add value. Think about adding value constantly. And for details on events happening near you, checking your local newspapers or favorite online communities is a great place to start. So that's kind of cool. Also, you want to promote your show in online communities. That's going to help you big time too. Let me explain. So, there are loads of virtual communities on Facebook, Quora, Reddit, Twitter, now called X, but also Instagram, to name a few. So, you want to find where discussions about your niche are happening online, and you want to see if you can add value to their forums. Promote actually your podcast tactfully. In other words, do not spam, please. That being said, be careful with your approach in online communities. You can't just swoop in and promote your podcast immediately. If you do, you probably get banned, especially on one such as Reddit. So what you want to do here is you want to focus on engaging with others and building trust with the community first before you try and sell something to people who have no loyalty to you yet, right? So you got to be really careful there, especially if you are doing things faster. Also, you want to create a podcast trailer. So basically, if you want to effectively market your podcast, having a podcast trailer is important for promotion. It should be quick and to the point, giving potential listeners a quick summary of your show with a taste of what's to come. Think of it as an elevator pitch, okay? And by the way, you should ideally drop the trailer about a week before your podcast release date. This gives you time to build up a bit of interest and get people ready for the first episode to drop. And even after your show has launched, your trailer still has value, okay? You want to create a podcast media kit also. Think of your media kit as your shop window for your podcast, really. So if you want to promote your podcast, let's say to journalists or local media outlets, a media kit is essential. And they have actually become the standard currency for this part of the industry. Not only do they look more professional than just listing links in an email, they are also much easier and quicker for the journalist to actually digest, which means what? You are more likely to be featured in the publication or get a reply in the first place. You also want to craft well-written press releases to stand out. So if you want to really stand out, think about that, okay? So getting a press release published in a relevant publication to your niche actually is key to spreading the word out about your show, increasing publicity, and also reaching new audiences. It will also help you build credibility, brand awareness, and relationships with the media in the first place. Now, one thing I want to say here is that don't just throw a few words together and forward them on. Okay? A press release needs to be well written and it should follow a specific structure. Now, don't be discouraged if a publication tweaks your press release. This is a standard practice and should be expected. They will, however, lift the majority of your language, okay? Meaning that you should take the time to write it in a way that suits their tone instead of solely yours, and in a way that can be translated into a news article. So just be aware of that. You can see on the screen here an example of a press release. So that can give you an idea of what to expect. Also, you want to work with influencers. If you're trying to really effectively market your podcast this year, partner with influencers. This means what? It means you can tap into their large, engaged followings. That being said, make sure to work with ones relevant to your industry or niche. Like with the social media giveaways, it has to make sense. Okay. For example, if you host, let's say, a sports podcast, but decide to work with a beauty influencer, their audience probably is not going to be interested in your content. And given the fact that you'll be paying them, be it money, free products, or other, to partner with you, it will be a waste. Okay, so as a podcaster, you might choose to work with influencers by inviting them to be a guest on your show, collaborating on branded content, or by sponsoring their social media post. So that's kind of cool because the bottom line is you want to build credibility and industry authority. Plus, influencers are famous for having close relationships with their audiences. And if a respected influencer endorses your podcast, their audience will immediately be more inclined to trust you. You also want to invest in paid ads. So if you want to really market your show this year, think about investing in paid ads. Okay, think this, of course, is budget dependent, so it won't be feasible for everyone. But if you are able to put some money behind your episodes, there are plenty of options. The thing is that you want to focus on your target audience. So social media is perfect for this. You can make specific Facebook ads that appeal to relevant demographics. So targeting the communities that you or your guests are part of, whether based on a school, university, hobby, or hometown, is actually a great way to get your show in front of the right audience. And you can get really clever in targeting, let's say your audience, but you got to have time. Okay, you got to have time. The cool thing is that Facebook, for instance, lets you find people who have indicated they are already interested in podcasts. So ads shown to them can be different to those shown to people who haven't. You can also vary ads shown to Android users versus Apple users. For more on managing paid ad campaigns, just check out my other video on the subject. In conclusion to this conversation, I share with you the top effective marketing hacks for podcasters. And now the conclusion. Thank you so much. God bless you. I will see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.